Welcome to Native Talk Arizona, Native Health's Native American Cultural Affairs program, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm Susan Levy. And on the phone with us today is Kimberly Morsalis and Cami Goldhammer from the Indigenous Lactation Counselors Training Program. Kimberly and Cami, welcome to Native Talk Arizona.
Hi, Susan. Good to be here.
So I know, Kimberly, I've known you for a very long time. Cami, I have not had the pleasure of meeting you, but I'm looking forward to learning more. But before we get started on the interview, I guess we'll start with, let's start with Cami since her name starts with a C. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey?
I'm Petchewashtami Takyapi, so good day, relatives. My name's Cami Goldhammer. I'm Sissetonwa Patana Yate, which is a tribe from South Dakota. I'm a Dakota woman, so use she, her pronouns. But I grew up in Seattle's urban Native community and suburban community. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, full spectrum Indigenous doula, and an internationally board certified lactation consultant since about 2013. And I am the creator and co-instructor with my best friend, Kim, of the Indigenous Lactation Counselor Training.
All right. And Kimberly, tell us all about yourself.
Yes. My name is Kim Morsalis. I'm Dene. I'm a tribal citizen of the Navajo Nation, born for the Mexican People Clan and born from the Blackfeet People Clan, born into the city. I'm a mother of three adult daughters. I'm an Indigenous birth worker and also an international board certified lactation consultant. I also work along with Cami Goldhammer. I'm a co-instructor and program coordinator for the Indigenous Lactation Counselor Training Program and also co-chair of the Maternal Mortality Review Committee and chair for the AI and Maternal Mortality Subcommittee for the Arizona Department of Health.
Wow, that's a lot. All right, so let's start with how you both got interested in the lactation programs. So, Kimberly, how did you get interested in breastfeeding?
I got interested actually with my experience with my daughters as a breastfeeding mother, particularly with my first daughter, Mima, who is now 26. I had some challenges with breastfeeding, with having some latching issues, but mostly with a perinatal mood disorder and a DEMER, which is a breastfeeding anomaly in lactation where just breastfeeding makes you feel sad. And it's a temporary anomaly within the breastfeeding session. And that was probably my first experience with breastfeeding as a mom and really trying to find support within my community that can, help me. And I didn't have a lot of, support in sharing what that was or helping me understand what was happening, during that time. And luckily I did have a lactation consultant from Indian Health Services, Sue Murphy, who was my mentor, provided some good support. I was able to see her at the Phoenix Indian Medical Center at the time, and she was, very much needed at the time. And then I transitioned into a peer counselor role at Native Health. Actually, that's probably when I met you, Susan, many years ago as a peer counselor where I would support moms in breastfeeding on the phone, in person, and just being a peer support, just sharing their challenges with me and how can I support them anymore. A community member just to help. And I think that was when things really sparked my interest in lactation and I wanted to do more. And during that journey, that's when I met Cami in 2014. Heard of her name at a conference, didn't get to see her speak, but she was floating around somewhere in that big conference where I think she and I were the only Native people in that whole conference. And I had an opportunity to see her again in that same year, actually 2014, in Washington, D.C. It was a United States Breastfeeding Committee conference. And, since then my life changed for this work and we do this work together. But I also breastfed my other two daughters with some challenges, but again, with the first support system with my mentor and my lactation consultant, I was able to breastfeed for 2 years, well into 2 years with my daughters, and then meeting Cami, and then again, my work evolved into breastfeeding as a cultural practice, which I'm sure we'll share on this call. But the reason why I breastfed and chose to breastfed is because I saw it in my community. I've seen it with my aunties breastfeeding my cousins, and I saw my mom do it, my sister. So that was really the decision that made me want to do it, was because I saw it in my community and my family, and that's a choice I made. But yeah, this was back in 2011 that I started my 2009 I started my lactation work. But as experience and lived experience, that's where I wanted to do more for my family. You know, that the cultural tradition was to breastfeed, and that's why I carried that. And now it's definitely evolved into a lot more, and I'm sure Cami can share more about the ILC training program, which we're so happy to talk about on this call.
Awesome. Well, and I do have to say, I do remember Sue Murphy. I do remember meeting you and working with you. And it's always important, you know, when we have these experiences. I don't know, it shapes who we are and what we do, and the things that we do. And then, Cami, so tell us, how did you get interested in breastfeeding and lactation programs?
Yeah, I have a slightly different story than Kim does, in the sense that I had never seen anyone breastfeed in my life. When I had my kids, I was and am a social worker, and my area of specialty as a social worker is the impacts of intergenerational trauma and unresolved grief on parenting practices and attachment and bonding. And so I was already pretty immersed in I'd call it the maternal child field, not so much maternal child health. I was really working with families, as a therapist, that were involved in child welfare. They had, kids that were a bit older, that kind of stuff. But it was still, my jam was attachment, bonding, parenting practices, that stuff. And so in 2009, when I had my first kid, my daughter Dylan, that's where things really shifted for me. I hadn't really planned on breastfeeding her. I also didn't plan on formula feeding her. I think a lot of parents don't, really more focused on their birth and what was going to happen there. I really didn't think about what would happen after the baby came. And so, I hadn't decided to breastfeed, but I also hadn't decided to formula feed. I just kind of figured it would, whatever happened would happen. And I had a nurse at at the hospital at the birth that, said to me when she was checking me in, "Hey, you're going to breastfeed your baby, right?" And I just said, "I'll try," that was kind of it. And I take great pride in being someone that decided to try and breastfeed at the hospital. And it literally changed the trajectory of my life, and was a decision that I don't think I ever understood the impacts it would have on me. But yeah, I had a pretty, a lot of people that come into lactation come in for one of two reasons. They either have a really hard time breastfeeding, or their own experience, which is where I'd say a majority of folks are, right, Kim? Like most people kind of, had a hard time, and they want to support other people and prevent them from having the same difficulty. And I was kind of the opposite, because I ended up having an incredible experience breastfeeding. I mean, my biggest problem was I made too much milk. And that in itself is a problem. It's just a little bit easier of a problem than not making enough, things like that. But I had a pretty incredible spiritual experience that I've talked about on different podcasts that folks can, look up later. But in that moment of nursing my daughter for the first time in the OR, post-cesarean, while I was still being stitched up, I knew that I was doing something that was very, very healing. And the memory I have of it is that it was the answer. That's all I kind of thought about, is this is the answer. All of my work that I was doing in attachment and bonding, breastfeeding was really the missing piece of that. So, so I went on to breastfeed. And I will say, a big part of the reason I had such an incredible time breastfeeding, or quote, easy time breastfeeding, is because I gave birth to 42-weekers. Both my girls are 42 weeks, it was their gestational age, which the mainstream medical system will call that late. But when it comes to lactation, we know that the longer kids have to mature in utero, the better breastfeeders they are. So I did have a pretty easy experience breastfeeding, but I now know that that's because I gave birth to old babies who were fully developed, fully developed and had their full chance to cook inside before they were born. So it wasn't anything, special or unique or whatever. It just was, it turns out the longer kids have inside and the less inductions and whatnot, the better they are when they come out. So, so I eventually, I'll wrap this up really quick, but, a couple weeks in, when I needed to start planning my return to work, I returned to work at about between 6 and 7 weeks postpartum. And I didn't know how to pump. I didn't know how to do anything. I was a field social worker at the time. So, I didn't have an office. I worked out of my car and in families' homes. And I went to a breastfeeding support group, hoping someone there could teach me how to use my pump and help me figure out a schedule and how to keep my milk cold when I'm in a car. And the response I got was, do you really need to go back to work? Your baby needs you. And I felt very, very, very judged in that experience. I felt all the women there were white, that they really didn't understand the lived experience of Native moms. And, this idea that, couldn't I just stay home was, just seemed so easy to them. And that's when I started looking up support for Indigenous lactation. And I Googled every possible Google combo you could. Native Americans breastfeeding, Indigenous breastfeeding support, Indian lactation. I mean, it was everything. And the only thing I found was the work that the Navajo Nation had been doing in passing their worksite lactation law. And they were the first tribe in the country to do that, and the work of Amanda Singer and Oronez and the Dene Breastfeeding Coalition really, got that going. So I saw that and knew that people were doing it, but that was it. And so the way I kind of roll is, if something's, I'm not one to wait for something. And it was clear that we needed to do something more for Native moms. And so eventually started a Native Breastfeeding Coalition, and then became a lactation consultant and started the Indigenous Lactation Counselor after my journey of becoming a lactation consultant and feeling pretty left behind in most of the educational spaces and clinical spaces out there, and wanted to do something different for our people.
Good for you guys. Look, you saw a need and you're filling it. So pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I have a general
question. That's the way we roll.
Hey, listen, then that's the most important thing.
So as you can see, that me and Cammie's stories are different, right? Like just different backgrounds and different reasons why we wanted to do this work.
And equally important, it is hard. I mean, it definitely is hard. Breastfeeding. Yeah, very important though. So I want to ask one of you, I'm not sure who wants to answer it. What are the basic advantages of breastfeeding? I know, isn't it like it reduces asthma and less ear infections? Anybody have that information off the top of their head?
I can share a little bit, and Cammie can probably jump in here. And we get that question asked a lot, and we kind of like to change that mindset of what is the benefit? What is the advantage? We like to say that when we breastfeed, it is a norm, right? That's our biological norm where we start. That is the foundation of being human and providing human milk. But there's a lot of benefits with, there you go saying it, there's a lot of things that happen when a mom breastfeeds. And I like to specifically say that for Native people, it is a life-saving practice. Not only does it protect the baby's gut health, but for us, when we share this information, it really preserves like cultural traditions. We also know that it is a form of food sovereignty and fostering really strong community bonds with each other, so kinship values. So we like to share in that way of it's culturally important to do that. So we look at the whole dynamic of the mom and the baby and the community, because we don't just look at just the medical side of the well-being and health of a baby or a mom, but really the infant health, the cultural connection. It's first food, so it passes on the flavors and nutrients from traditional diets. Community support, so we really try to include like our aunties and elders to really guide, encourage moms to be a part of that process of sharing stories or breastfeeding, and then just the long-term health. Of course, it does strengthen families, and reduces all the health disparities. But like Cami said, there's that bonding factor that we like to say. It's a really, really cool thing to see and have that part of your breastfeeding journey. And it really helped with, like I said, my perinatal mood disorder I have with my daughter. I share that story when we're teaching, is that with my daughter Mima, again, she's 26, and when I had years of guilt of feeling like I didn't have that connection with her the way that like Cami had that experience with her children or her daughter, for me it wasn't something I could control other than just a mood disorder, but understanding it and where it came from. One of the things that Cami did share with me is, how you bonded with your first daughter was you held her a lot. And with my daughter Mima, I used to call her every time we talk about my breastfeeding journey, and she finally said, "Mom, you don't have to feel guilty about it. I don't remember. All I know is that you loved me and you held me and you took care of me." And so that was definitely a life-changing moment for me, that breastfeeding can sustain a life bonding with your children, even when they go into adulthood. So, Cami, I don't know if you want to share anything with how we share about breastfeeding.
Yeah, I can definitely share some more info on why breastfeeding is important. And yeah, like Kim said, we try and use language because we take the stance that there's not really a benefit to breastfeeding. It's our biological norm, which means there's only risk associated with not breastfeeding. So we talk about the importance of breastfeeding, not necessarily the benefits of breastfeeding. So some of the things that we know that are particularly important for our little indige babies is that babies that are not breastfed have a 50 to 70% increased risk of SIDS. Babies that are not breastfed have a 40 to 90% increased risk of developing diabetes. And for moms that don't breastfeed, they have an increased risk of developing diabetes. And that's especially true for moms that have gestational diabetes. When they breastfeed, they're half as likely to develop type 2 diabetes, which is a really, really, really important protective factor. Babies that are not breastfed, premature babies that are not breastfed, are at risk of dying, especially of the leading cause of death of prematurity, which is necrotizing enterocolitis or NEC. The risk factor for that is being born premature and not being breastfed, so being formula fed. It's unseen in babies that get breast milk, which is why we see so many hospitals now offering human milk for babies that are born premature in the NICU. babies that aren't breastfed have an increased risk of heart disease and several cancers. And these are things that, especially when it comes to heart disease and diabetes, these are the leading causes of death of Native people. And a bulk of breastfeeding dollars in this country come from diabetes prevention dollars. So at the CDC, state, and federal government levels, it's diabetes prevention money that's paying for breastfeeding support and programming because it's so protective. As you and the listeners probably are well aware of, that up to a third of Native people have diabetes, and some of our communities up to 60% of adults have diabetes. So we can draw a direct correlation between our low breastfeeding rates and our high diabetes rates. And that's a foundation that we can't undo, right? So if an adult is diagnosed with diabetes, they can, exercise, eat healthier, eat more traditional foods, do a lot of different things. Right now we have medications like GLP-1s and insulin that can, they can maintain a really long and healthy life, but they cannot make up for not being breastfed. That's just one of those things that foundation that breastfeeding lays is really important. And then breastfeeding also offers a lot of protections for the nursing parent. So parents that breastfeed, parents that formula feed have an increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, heart disease, reproductive cancers, especially breast cancer. That's one area breastfeeding is really, really protective. And then we also see an increased risk in perinatal mood disorders like depression and anxiety and OCD in parents that don't breastfeed. So there's a ton of protections. It's so incredibly important for our community, and our community suffers from so many health disparities, and breastfeeding really offers infinite protections against those.
Wow, that is a lot. A lot of good advantages, and I know that's not the word that you want me to use, but a lot of important things. So, Cami, tell us, I know that you have an Indigenous Lactation Counselors Training Program. Tell us about that. How long is it? Who qualifies? Where is it? And what the process is.
Yeah, so Kim and I are the lead only instructors for the Indigenous Lactation Counselor Training. Our first training was taught in September of 2017 in Utqiagvik, Alaska, also known as Barrow, Alaska, on the Arctic slope. And we have just wrapped up, I think it was our 54th or 55th training a couple weeks ago. So the Indigenous Lactation Counselor Training really came out of my own experience of becoming a lactation consultant. I had some incredible mentors and teachers along the way, but all of them were white, so none were Native, right? So I felt like clinically I was trained really, really well, but culturally there was just this huge gap. And one of the things that a colleague of ours, Kimberly Moore-Salas, that's Kim here. You guys can edit that part out. Now I can't even, Kimberly Seals-Allers. Okay, so you guys can edit that part out. So our colleague, Kimberly Seals-Allers, says people don't breastfeed, cultures breastfeed. And that's something that Kim and I have really found to be true. So again, while I received great training clinically, the bottom line is cultures breastfeed. And that was just something that none of the people that taught me over the years of becoming a lactation consultant can really fulfill. So I really wanted to create a training that was for us and by us, so by Native people, for Native people. And in the United States, and Canada, the way we all kind of start out in the field of lactation is with a 45-hour course. So it's a 5-day, 45 hours of foundational lactation knowledge. And so that's what the Indigenous Lactation Counselor Training is. It's 5 days, 45 hours. You do have to be self-identified as Indigenous to take it, and we cover pretty much everything you need to know to get started, to provide support in community, and to the people around you who need it. We know that breastfeeding support is pretty much the end-all, be-all to all breastfeeding relationships. It is the number one reason, a lack of support is the number one reason people don't meet their breastfeeding goals. And so the Indigenous Lactation Counselor training is really mine and Kim's way of, one, giving the knowledge back to the community. We've both been really, really blessed and lucky to have access to this type of training and knowledge. And so we want to give it back to the community so that people can serve moms in their, on their res, in their urban areas, rural areas, where there's such a huge lack of lactation support. We've trained about just around 1,200 people, wow, Indigenous lactation counselors, all over the United States, Canada, Hawaii, the Pacific Islands. We've been to Guam, and in February of this year, 2026, we did 2 trainings in Australia with our Aboriginal sisters in the South Pacific. And it's just, we never thought we would do this when we were in Barrow, Alaska, almost 10 years ago, but we've just been so lucky to do it, and that we've been trusted by so many communities around Turtle Island in the Pacific.
So Kimberly, since we're pretty much out of time, I wanted to find out, how can our listeners find more information about your program, the Indigenous Lactation Counselors Training Program? Is it a website? Can they email you? What's the best way, and how can they enroll? Or is it that they would just reach out first and then do that?
You can find us on Facebook, so Indigenous Lactation Counselors, and typically people will message us there and ask for either support or what's the next training, and we kind of share that information there. Also, people are free to email us, and most folks have our contact information, like our cell phone, if they need someone to support them in breastfeeding or even mentorship, or mentoring or guiding how to support breastfeeding families. And lactation counselors, Indigenous lactation counselors are huge, valuable resources in our community across the country, and we're so happy to have, good relatives that can support moms and babies.
Okay, so again, you said it is on Facebook. It's Indigenous Lactation Counselors, correct?
Counselors, on Facebook, yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for coming on, both of you. I hope our listeners take advantage. I hope they realize how important this is and what a difference they can make in their lives and their families' lives, and reach out to both of you and hopefully get some people trained.
Thank you.
Coming up next on Native Talk Arizona, we'll chat with the members of the band Sunbird Stone. Support for KRDP 90.7 FM comes in part from Native Health, with 2 locations in Phoenix: 4041 North Central Avenue, Building C, near the corner of Central Avenue and Indian School Road, and at 8800 North 22nd Avenue. Native Health is also located in Mesa at 777 West Southern Avenue, near the corner of Southern Avenue and Extension Road. And Native Health provides primary medical services at the new Wallaloop Health Center, 6725 South Priest Drive in Guadalupe. Native Health provides primary medical, dental, behavioral health, WIC, and wellness services for the urban Native American community. For more information, call 602-279-5262 or visit our webpage at nativehealthphoenix.org.
Welcome back to Native Talk Arizona, Native Health's Native American Cultural Affairs program, presented by Native Health and KRDP 90.7 FM. I'm Susan Levy, and the band Sunburnt Stone is from Albuquerque, New Mexico, plays music based upon a mix of various influences and genres, from country, blues, rock, and Americana. On the phone are bandmates Andrew Buzzy Wilson, he's the songwriter, singer-guitarist Mike Argenis, who's the bass player, Karen Argenis is the keyboardist, and Nicole Sosi is the drummer. Hello and welcome to Native Talk Arizona.
Hello. Howdy, everybody.
All right, but before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourselves and your journey. So I guess I'll start with you, Buzzy, and then we'll get Mike, and then Karen, and then Nicole. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Okay. I grew up in northern Arizona on the Navajo Reservation, little community called Shanto. And I've been doing music since I was like 10 years old, but it's definitely taught me a lot of things and taken me different places, you know. I've been having experiences in my life that I never think I would come across through music. It's been quite a fun journey for me.
And Mike?
I'm from Albuquerque. I lived here all my life, played with a few bands, and found Buzz through Daryl, and been playing with him for about, 2 years, maybe 3 years.
About 5 or 6.
Okay, and Karen, how about you?
Hi, I've been in New Mexico since '94. I've been doing music as long as I can remember. I'm also an artist, and I love these desert places, and that's what's drawn me here for art and music.
Awesome. All right, and Nicole?
Hi, so I'm from Gallup, New Mexico. I grew up there, and music's always been a large part of my life, just listening and enjoying to music. And when I went to college, that's where I started drumming. I was in the Native American choir at Fort Lewis College, became the hand drum, and then eventually I learned the acoustic kit.
Wow. All right. Okay, super excited. All right, so I want to learn more. So Buzzy, tell us, what does the name Sunburnt Stone mean? How'd you come up with it? And I don't know, anything else about it?
It sort of has several different meanings. One basically was a part of my life. For about 11 years, I was a stonemason, and I worked all over the United States. I actually cut and chipped and chiseled stone, built like high-end homes, fireplaces, things like that. So the stone just sort of became part of that name. And when we decided to come together and form this band, we sort of just thought about what would be like Southwest style or something. And so the sunburn sort of comes from the idea of like patina type stone. You know, if you look at Anasazi ruins and petroglyphs and stuff, you often see images that are chiseled into the side of I guess it would be like a desert varnish on sandstone, you know. But the name seemed like it would just fit perfectly for what we were doing and our style of sound we were trying to create.
Okay, well then that leads me to the next question. How would you describe your sound genre? I don't know if Buzzy, if you want to answer that or pass it to somebody else.
Yeah, I answer a little bit and I'll pass it.
Okay.
But our style and our genre, I mean, it comes a lot from my experiences just growing up on the reservation. One thing, like I used to watch like old spaghetti Western movies, and the composer Ennio Morricone. I was very much a fan of his style of music growing up. And to me, I'm not classically trained, so when I heard music, that's what music was to me. And I was also influenced by like other things that were around me, like country music, rock music, psychedelic, 60s style music. I just basically put them all together, and our sound was sort of formed. And I'll let Nicole answer the part about why they call it spaghetti acid Western.
All right, Nicole?
So we did an interview with Brett Mabey from the show Gyno in New York, and he actually coined the term spaghetti acid Western for us. It was something he made, on the spot, and it was like, yeah, that fits perfectly. That is exactly what it is. It's spaghetti western, but more modern and, rock. So yeah, we just felt that it fit really well.
All right, and I don't know who wants to answer. Why do you gravitate towards those genres, or are you kind of always expanding?
I think our music, it's very experimental at times. Sometimes it's just very, I want to say conservative or just simple, like folk music would be. But at times we gravitate towards experimental type sounds because we play a lot of art festivals and stuff throughout the Southwest. Karen's been, a part of the art scene, around Santa Fe and South and stuff like that. So, on our travels, we meet new people and we always find some sort of influence that pushes us to where we've never been. Right, Karen?
I feel how we gravitate towards the music is reflective of where we live and these places that we love to be. The kind of ghost towns and desert places.
Okay, so Southwest. All right, and then who determined the kind of album concepts that you went for and why? Is that all of you together, or does one person make the decision?
Well, primarily it's been me on the first 4 albums, and I've just done that out of necessity to get our stuff out there efficiently, and there's so much that goes into the process of recording and writing and stuff. It just depends on where we're at whatever time frame we're at.
Okay. How long does it take to write and produce a song? Do you all just sit down together in somebody's garage or in a studio and go, hey, we're going to do this afternoon, or does this take months or weeks? How does that work?
Very, very good question. There's different ways I can answer this. You could definitely say, I've been writing, one song for, 35 years, since I was 10 years old, but I just haven't finished it. I think that's due to my own artistic interpretation of what I'm trying to achieve. But then at other times, I'll just crank out a song in 5 minutes if I need to, and it's usually, I don't know where I get it from, the creativity, or just my mind goes to a place where that's all I can think about sometimes. And then at other times, we'll be together and somebody will come up with a riff or an idea, and the whole band will jump in, and the music will just sort of shape itself. I don't really think you can force art. It just has to happen when it happens, whether it takes 35 years or 5 minutes, or it is definitely an interesting question, though.
No, and I think everybody, a lot of artists or musicians that we've spoken to, they all have such different processes. Some people are very detail oriented and practice, and others just kind of do it on the fly. And I always like to find out how they do it. Okay, my next question for you all is, tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind your music and songs. I know that Karen had just mentioned living in the Southwest. Is that where you get it? And also, are there any bands or artists that you draw inspiration from?
Let's let Mike answer this one. He's really into
Mike,
cool bands and stuff.
I have no idea. I've been involved in all kinds of different music. Just something that's got a feel to it, to a groove, and just play. Love to play. We all love to play.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. Every time we go, usually to rehearse at Mike and Karen's house, Mike's always got some kind of strange indie record playing either on the TV or on the sound system, and I have absolutely no idea who the artist is. We just showed up and he was listening to, I think it was the artist Beck, second album, and it's something that when I was younger I would just pass by, but when he was listening to it, I started really listening to it and getting into the groove, feeling the vibe. In a way, it's sort of inspirational, my own bandmates, to see what they do and what they're interested in as well.
All right, so what are you all working on now?
Well, currently we are doing a lot of live shows. We're playing for the city of Gallup this weekend for their summer concert series. I'm lining up some more music festivals. I think we'll do one in northern Arizona. and we're also doing recordings for like commercials and stuff. We just got done recording for a film called The Arrangement that was last year. It was produced by a Navajo director named Shoni De La Rosa and shown in indie film festivals all over Europe, and I think it made it down to Australia and stuff. We won some awards for it, so pretty happy about that.
So which song that you've written and produced is your favorite? I don't know if you each have something different, a different answer, but which is your favorite?
Yeah. Can I let my bandmates answer?
Sure.
Go ahead, Nicole.
So I think my favorite is The Lake. It's about Lake Powell, and it just has this really good flow to it. Also, I make the videos for our songs, the music videos. So that one, it was just really fun to make. It had like live footage from, when we spent time there and stuff like that. So I think that's why it's also my favorite, because it's like a memory and also just a really good song.
And which album is that one on?
That would be the first.
Okay, and the name of that one?
El Navajo album.
Okay. All right, and who else wants to tell me next what their favorite one is? And which album?
I'd like to share that The Lake is also my favorite, and it's that relaxed summer groove to it. And I didn't know that Nicole was also going to say that answer, and I'm thinking on that. I think when we share favorites, I think that's when we really get into the groove on a song.
All right, and then we have Buzzy and Mike. Any favorites?
Go ahead, Mike.
Probably Atomic.
Okay, and which album is that one on?
It's also El Navajo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then Buzzy, how about you? Or do you not have a favorite?
My favorite song, it's a hard question for me to answer as well, because I can't discriminate between my songs. They're all like the same for me because I wrote them. But I do like playing a lot of the obscure material that we don't ever do often, because then it gives the audience something else that they can listen to and experience at our shows. And that's often forever changing thing. My bandmates usually don't know what kind of set list I'm going to produce for every show, or even like when we're playing our songs, sometimes I'll change them while we're during a live performance, and just, you know, my bandmates, they're really cool that they just follow along and stuff. I think that's part of the magic about everything, is just like letting it happen, you know. And people like in today's world, not many people go to shows like they used to, you know, during like the 90s and 80s, you know, that during those eras. But I think when we perform, we get to show them something that they've never experienced. When they see like that energy happening live in the moment, sort of like chaotic, you know, they can feel it too, especially if it's full of deep emotion and we're all really into it, driving that beat.
You know, it seems like you all mesh so well. Do you get together and practice a lot? I know a couple of you is everybody in Albuquerque?
So Andrew and I are in Albuquerque. Karen and Mike are in Moriarty. We also have two more members. Daryl Young, he is in Phoenix or Surprise, Arizona. And we also have Brian Donnelly, and he is in Gallup, New Mexico. So we don't usually get to, I mean, it's rare when we all are able to get together and practice. But, you know, like Andrew was saying, you know, we can just get together and vibe and, you know, go with the flow. So that's what's good about our group.
That's awesome. All right.
Yeah,
So
music.
Go ahead.
Music is a universal language, and you know, it doesn't matter when you play with musicians that like don't speak the same language, or it's all about feel sometimes. And when you're on a stage sharing it with people that are from different backgrounds and different experiences in their life, it comes together and it creates something that's very unique that, you know, that's what people hear. It creates like its own style and stuff. But I think that has a lot to do with our band's energy, being that our bandmates are all in different locations, spread out, you know. So when we get together, every show's like different, but it has its own style of magic or energy to it.
Well, what are you all working on now?
Like songs?
Yeah, like an album, or what? I know you said that you're going to be touring, like Albuquerque,
yes,
and then northern Arizona and things like that.
Yeah, we have some more songs we're recording for commercial purposes, and we are playing several live shows. Like we have a show for the city of Gallup on Saturday, and I'm setting up some another show in northern Arizona for a music festival. But I haven't announced it yet because we haven't fully cleared it. But I'm constantly writing and making ideas within my head. And I usually record whenever I'm available to do it. You know, it's more of a time thing for me than just being able to do it when I want to do it. So I usually have a pretty busy schedule with everything and everybody. So.
Okay. All right. So we are almost out of time, but I wanted to find out, how can our listeners find more information about your band, listen to your music, and how can they contact you?
Yeah, so you can find us online on Facebook and Instagram under Sunburnt Stone. You can find our music on all major streaming platforms, again, under Sunburnt Stone. We have 4 albums out there. You can visit us at a show, because that's definitely, you know, where we like to be, with the crowd, with the people, and just vibing together.
They would find it under Sunburnt Stone. And again, you said streaming platforms. And then do you have a website?
Yes, we do have a website. It's unfortunately, it's kind of a little bit out of date, so it doesn't have all our current information on there. But it is sunburnstone.com.
All right, and then check their social media. It has been a pleasure to chat with you all. I loved your music. I listened to it. I thought you do a great job. And I actually downloaded some of it, so I hope our listeners do that as well. But I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to chat with us today. And so thanks for coming on Native Talk Arizona.
Likewise. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to Native Talk Arizona, presented by Native Health and 90.7 FM KRDP. Our executive producer is Susan Levy. Sound engineer is Javier Quiroga. We hope you will tune in again next week. If you have any questions, please reach us at nativetalkaz@listen2krdp.com.